Hello, everybody. Welcome back to the Subjective Perspective Show, episode 149. We are honored, ecstatic here in the Yosemite area, as you can see above me, of California, to be able to share in the time of one of the greatest singers, musicians, uh, producers of all time. This is somebody who needs no introduction, though an individual who we are absolutely inspired by. This is episode 149 of the Subjective Perspective Show featuring the one and only, the timeless Kenny Vance. So we just want to, welcome you all back to the show, and we'll have Kenny with us in about 10 minutes or so. Pretty cool thing about Zoom technologies. It allows us to interact in this capacity where we are able to bring people right to our home studio, where if you look back at a couple years of our talk show, you can see we've had a home studio for many years. Goodness gracious. We started in 2013 for those that are new to us, knowing who we are. Go check out beawoke.com. Now, I know the term woke has a lot of different interpretations nowadays and different contexts it could be used, different perspectives. I want to let you all know the reason we created beawoke.com was to awaken consciousness, to enlighten people. So that's why we do what we do here. And we do it from a multitude of perspectives of people from around the planet. Again, this is episode 149, the 6-year anniversary to the date from when we had Kenny on last. Okay, so that was February 27th, 2015. If you go to the archive section at beawoke.com, or you can just type us into Spotify, Apple Podcasts, is going to say iTunes, I'm not sure how that all the there's a big transition there, I think, and I forget how that flowed. Though most all podcast sites, you could find us. Okay, and just type in the Subjective Perspective Show on Spreaker.com, our console. We're honored to have had over 100,000 downloads from all of you. So thank you all so much for staying linked to us and for enjoying the ideas that we present. Hopefully, showing that there are so many different perspectives regarding this world we live in, and people that have done incredible things, people that may not be known that have done incredible things, that strive to do incredible things, right? We have to recognize that all of these individuals need a platform, deserve to be heard. And we're hoping that many of you that are watching this who are emerging artists also send over a press kit, okay, right over at beawoke.com. Just go through the top of the webpage there, and you'll find the drop down menu and ways that you can submit to be a featured guest. We've had people of all different types on our show, all different work backgrounds and viewpoints and historical figures to emerging individuals, people that don't want to be historic ever, though gave us their time to have a nice conversation. We hope you enjoy all of the work we've put into the show and the network. Big shout out always to our good friends over in Brooklyn, New York, Bud and Roach, the gentleman over there at budandroach.com. Always got to give them a big shout out too, because that's where we started. And we never forget where we come from. That's one of the things I learned about growing up in the New York area. Never forget where you come from, you know? Always give respect to those that have assisted in the journey in a positive way. And so if you ever get a chance, really good fellas out there, not, I believe, in the same area that Kenny grew up in. Oh, goodness gracious. Now, I could say my family started in Bedford Stuyvesant, Brooklyn, Bed-Stuy, and the fellows, I won't give up their location. I'm not even sure if they're in that same location, though. They're from the Brooklyn, New York area, and just really good people. And we also want you to check out all of our videos up on YouTube. Now, just by watching this video on the main page at beawoke.com or in the archives, if you're watching it at that point, you'll be able to just click on the title and it'll bring you to our YouTube page. Just type in the subjective perspective. There's a couple of them up there. We're the one that has the more subscribers, and you'll find this video up there. And a lot of those are ones from music we have put out and yada yada. So it's the subjective perspective without the vowels, but I believe there is a U between the S and the B. So we were having a fun time getting the trying to differentiate with names and to get into public consciousness in a unique way with the way we titled our page. So just type in the subjective perspective. And if you'd like, we're holding a contest today. And actually, we have Kenny in. So we're about to get Kenny in on this conversation, ladies and gentlemen, the great Kenny Vance. Hey, Kenny. Oh, getting the audio all set. Hey, Kenny, can you hear me?
Yeah.
Great to see you.
How you
Great to see
doing?
you. I'm doing very well.
Good.
Kenny,
Can you
this,
see me?
yes, I can. Yes,
All right.
we can.
All right.
Everybody out there, can we see Kenny? Kenny, the
Yeah.
camera on your area, can you push it down a little bit?
I'm gonna try. Hold on.
Sorry.
No, it's all right.
And
That's
I
okay.
am we are so honored, Kenny.
Should push the camera. What do
Yeah.
you
Oh, we got you. Okay. So when you're back, perfect, perfect, absolutely perfect.
you want me to sing a song?
Yes.
I got the guitar.
Thank you.
So I could do that, whenever we decide.
Oh, goodness gracious. Kenny, thank you. Thank you. Okay, already. Uh, blowing my mind over here. This is
Okay.
incredible. An honor. Thank you, sir.
My
Kenny,
pleasure.
uh, we've had you on. I was mentioning in the introduction, 6 years to the day today. We had you on in 2015.
That's when you first started.
That's when we were first starting, and you
Yeah, we
were
did it on the
we
phone.
did it 100%.
And you
And
hung in there.
thank you so much. Yeah,
And now you got what? You got a lot of followers and you're doing well.
I tell you this, Kenny. Uh, I've there's people who have millions of followers. We have all of the followers that are supposed to be following us. I like to look at it like,
Okay.
and we have a good good group of people from around the planet who check
Good.
us out.
Wonderful.
So we're getting there as things progress. There's a lot going on with the internet world right now and how we're sharing ideas. Uh,
Great.
you
Great.
were, we have nobody nearly. That's why I say. I mean, there's people like you who have people who love them. People love you, Kenny.
Right. Okay.
And I know that's crazy to hear, and not to put it so fast on you like that, but we don't have that. That's something that takes time. And
Right.
Kenny, I was just saying before you were so awesome enough to zoom in here to the show, episode 149. I'd like to say of the Subjective Perspective Show. We're holding a contest. We got buttons here. We have keychains here. We have cool different types of stickers here and all this fun stuff.
How
So
nice.
if anybody wants to be in the running for this, we have a whole bunch of them. So we want to give them all away. So we have like a lot of things here, a couple hundred. If I gave one or two away to everybody, probably about 100 people get something. Okay, and we'll take care of all the mailing and stuff. Go to our YouTube page where you're watching this, subscribe, give us a comment of what you thought about this interview with the beloved Kenny Vance.
So are we, you're already on the air?
We're on the air, and Kenny, we're not live. We'll be uploading this to all the
Okay.
social media networks right at about an hour or so after this finalizes. So right
Okay.
now, the moment, there's a little delay for everybody watching, but they'll see this in a couple of hours.
Okay. How long do you think the interview how long do you do? An hour?
Hour we typically do, but whatever's good for you. If there's anything,
Well,
but hour.
what would you like to know?
Okay, let's go. Let's get into some cool ideas. Kenny, first off, always like to start off, and we got into this last time, but you know, just for everybody listening and watching this, I actually do a lot of work in education, so there's going to be a whole lot of students watching this.
Okay.
For people that are being put on to you
Okay.
for right
Well, we
now,
could get we
where you from? Where were you born and raised?
well, we could give a little, I've been doing this for a long time. I started making records in the late 50s. So that's 50, 60, 70, 80, 90. It's about 60 years ago, if you really think about it. And in those days, I came from Brooklyn, New York, and started a group with a few friends called the Harborites. And that group made a few records. I was 15 years old, and we wound up taking the subway from Brooklyn into Manhattan, and we got off at 49th and Broadway, and we went to a building on 54th Street, which was the Ed Sullivan Theater building. It's where David Letterman had his late night with David Letterman show. And it's a pretty big building. I don't know how many floors, but they had these fly by night record companies in that building. You see, in those days, uh, there were a lot of adults making records, and all of a sudden, this revolution took place. And it was young people making records for other young people. And so the adults didn't know what was going on with this, because they had mainstream labels, record labels like RCA, Columbia, Capitol, Decca, and those record companies had adults that were making records for adults. And then all of a sudden, anybody with a couple of $100 could make a record with a bunch of kids that could conceivably sell 1 million copies. That's $1 million. So the first example of it was a guy by the name of George Goldner that I was familiar with. And he started a company. He was recording Latin records. He recorded Tito Puente, and many years later, Santana covered some of Tito Puente's songs and had many hits. But he decided to go to make records, rhythm and blues records. Rhythm and blues records were being made by Black adults for the Black adult market. But but he had these young kids. So when they wrote a song, it was like an adolescent version of rhythm and blues. And he put one of these records out. It was called G by the Crows. And it sold unbelievable amount of records. So now he opens up a company called G Records, and he makes a record with Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers called Why Do Fools Fall in Love? And it sells millions and millions of copies. So all of these other companies, these mainstream record companies, they go, what's going on here? How did George Goldner wind up with Frankie Lyman and the Teenagers? But that event of that record selling millions and millions of copies, they said, who's buying this record? They didn't know. It was teenagers, young teenagers that were mainstream America. So not only did the people in the record business think, well, we got to cash in on that market, but all of a sudden, movies and lipstick and pocketbooks and all of these other industries started to pander to these young people. And that really was the beginning of this revolution that's lasted to today, because when movies come out and records come out, they're not making them for adults, they're making them for kids. And that was really the event that started that. And I was 15 years old at the time, and I didn't know exactly the story that I just told you. I didn't know that story then. But as the years went by, I started to look at it and thought, well, that was what was going on. And my group made a couple of records for a fly-by-night record company, and then we got a manager, and at the manager's office was a guy that was singing with the group called the Mystics that did Hushabye, and his name was Jay Traynor. And we hooked up with him, and we had an audition with Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller, who were the two biggest record producers in the world, producing Elvis Presley, producing
Wow.
people like that. And we auditioned for them, and they liked us, and they recorded us, and they called us Jay and the Americans. And we proceeded to have a 12 or 13-year career into the 70s. And we had a dozen top 5 records, some number 1 records all over the country. Come a Little Bit Closer, Cara Mia, Let's Lock the Door, She Cried. And so, that is a pretty, uh, that's the beginning of it for me. And I don't know if you're a historian, or if you're in school and you're getting a lecture about it, or just a historical perspective on it, which is close to the name of your show. uh um you're probably interested in that. I don't know,
Oh, yes.
but
Yes. Uh,
so
Kenny, first off, how do I sound? How does my audio on your side? I should have asked
yeah, it's
that earlier.
fine.
Awesome. Cool.
Fine.
Great. Kenny, so thank you for that introduction. I have a couple questions, and maybe at the end play a little word association game with you. Have a couple words, see what first comes to mind. But you know, you mentioned Brooklyn. You know, and I apologize. You may have mentioned what part of Brooklyn, but if not, and if you could mention what part of Brooklyn and how, from your perspective, how has Brooklyn changed or stayed the same from when you were 15?
Wow. In those days, adults had their own world. They dressed a certain way. They had Mostly you would see people who were dressed up, they were walking around in the 50s with suits, white shirts. The women were dressed in skirts, and you'd never see a woman wearing pants, and it was very formal. And kids didn't really interact with adults. Now there doesn't seem to be any separation. The adults are dressing like, just kind of casual, and the kids are just growing up included in the adult world, it seems to me. But in those days, there was a very big separation.
Interesting. Great point. Totally understand. That is a huge difference. Anything the same?
Huge difference, a huge difference. And I think that from the 50s, which was a very big uh, explosion in terms of people coming out of the 40s, and there were World War II, immigrants coming over from Europe. And I think the 50s was a very prosperous time for people that were trying to make it. And then what happened was there was in Brooklyn a very big decline took place. It kind of disappeared. And the things that were flourishing, like Kings Highway and Flatbush Avenue, which were very exciting centers of commerce, now all of a sudden turned into kind of, not totally depressed areas, but very, very down. And then I would say about in the year 2000, that things started to pick up again, where there was a tremendous renaissance taking place. And now you can go into these old neighborhoods like Red Hook and Bensonhurst and Bay Ridge, and you see that it's all come back now. And the immigrant groups that are there are very diverse and different than the immigrant groups were in the 50s.
So, Kenny, and I want to ask you as well, how have you been since the pandemic?
Well, um, I didn't get the virus, if that's what you mean. I
Thank
didn't get it. I
goodness.
was
Thank
lucky.
goodness.
I lost some dear friends from it.
I'm
Um,
sorry.
and I think that it, has been, a tremendous lesson for people in a way. I mean, we've all been, it's like you can't, let's just go for dinner, or let's get a hot dog, or let's go for a walk, or, those things,
It's crazy.
really everybody was kind of, sequestered in their own little environments. And, it's been, just like it's hard to believe, what at this stage of the game in life, you just never expected something like that to happen. With all of the advancements in medicine and everything like that, you just never would expect it. But it did happen. And at first, we thought it was just going to last for a little while, but here it is a year later. And you adjust. And, if there are some things like this kind of interaction that we're having right now, didn't really exist then, but now it seems like it's the state of the art. I'm working on a film. I've been working on a film for many, many years, a documentary, and we have a meeting, just every couple of days on Zoom. And that's how we're progressing. So I think, like there's a lot of new lessons being learned. People like who were forced, had to go to an office every day. They don't have to go. They can do their work from home. So there's a lot of things changing, but I noticed that wherever I go, people are still wearing masks. and maybe that's going to be the norm. I don't know,
You
you
know
know.
what's Kenny? You want to hear it? Check this out. Okay, so my mom and dad went to go see you one day. Gosh, like 2019, maybe a year before the
Yeah.
pandemic,
Hmm.
and they sent me the picture. So that's a big shout out to Mama and Papa. That's you. Always, you're
Yeah.
amazing. Signing the autographs, and
Oh yeah.
they send their love, Kenny.
Okay.
Now, if you zoom in behind you, I was like, wow, that's so wild. Can you see that person?
My God. Yeah. Wow. That's yeah. Yeah.
I I don't even know who the first one was to see that, but I was like, somebody took a time machine to go watch you that day. You might have been in like Hop Hog High School or somewhere in
Yeah.
Long Island. It was.
Yeah.
So I saw that. I was like, that's wild. But again, people who have different medical issues, they may wear the masks, so that happens. And that's great.
Yeah.
That's the right thing to do. And some people, are, told by their doctors to wear the mask. I just thought that was so interesting. I was like, because it was a little bit of jest that I could infuse into a year of people dealing
Yeah.
with tumultuous time. And our hearts go out to everybody, such as your friends and their
Yeah.
families who have suffered through this.
Yeah.
Sorry, brother. Sorry, Kenny. Uh,
Sure.
now, if I could make a point, you mentioned a bit about actually, before I go into the building I want to talk about, you may have already have an idea where I'm going. Uh, you did a New Year's Eve special. I just want to say really quick. And got tickets from my parents. We got tickets, and it was incredible. It was incredible. Like, really, I just wanted to ask you, how was it performing and doing all of that via Zoom and everything you've been doing? How is that compared to being on the big stages?
Well, it's a it presents a different challenge. And when you go on stage, I mean, that's a whole other thing where everything has to be, set up front, and it's sound check and make sure that everybody is in sync, and there's a certain type of energy there that you can't feel when you're separate. So what we had to do is, we have a wonderful group of guys, and I'm not sure exactly how it started, but Johnny Gale, the music director, he got Tony, the drummer, probably to I Johnny played first, and he filmed it, or someone filmed it,
Okay.
and then it was sent to Tony, the drummer.
Okay,
So
cool.
Tony, now he played, and he was filmed doing that. So now you have two people in sync.
That's great.
Now the keyboard player, Chip, he played to the two of them. So now you have the band, you have the three guys in the band,
That's cool.
and then Lad and Jimmy also filmed their parts singing the background,
They're
and then they
amazing.
sent it to me. So I watched it on they played it back for me, and then I basically had to sing it, live, with no echo effects or no accoutrement, and there it was. And
Amazing, you all
then you
were.
had to mix it all together, to get the blend right. And so, it was an interesting procedure, that up until that time, we never ever thought about. But the pandemic kind of, forced people to do that. And now, actually, I see on TV they have a similar thing, but it's if it's NBC or CBS, it's like on a whole other level of electronics. but it's still that people are separated.
100%. And Kenny, I was gonna say, I was gonna ask you actually. We were driving earlier and just getting some errands done, and I was thinking, saying to Lisa, my wife, who sent her love, uh, you know, I was going to ask you, have you, you know, you probably thought you saw it all until like, until what's been going on. You're like, whoa,
Yeah,
out of nowhere. Like you mentioned, not to be redundant with it. But Kenny, so thank you for putting that on for New Year's. I can't even tell you, it brought so much joy. My parents up in PA, my mom asked actually to ask you if you were going to get to Wilkes-Barre, Pennsylvania. I think that's how they pronounce it.
yeah,
Uh,
I think so.
Anytime when it's safe, or any ideas? She was
I
wondering.
really don't know. You know,
Yeah,
I don't know. We
yeah,
just play it by ear, I guess.
yeah,
You know, I think
yeah.
it's too soon to really
Yeah.
think about it.
I know, I know. Everybody's itching for Kenny Vance, the Planotones. They want him. We'll get to the Planotones in a moment. I'm
Yeah,
sure you're getting some messages. I'm sure you put incredible music out. We'll talk about For Your Love as well in a bit. But I always like to get into as you mentioned, the historical aspect, the historical perspective. Like the Subjective Perspective show is all about the individual who we have featured, really speaking from their heart, from their depth, you know, and you know, sort of just talking it all out, and at the end of it, feeling like, hey, okay, I feel that was. I think that was pretty all right, you know. So that's the
okay.
direction we go, and really, just what a joy this is. Uh, so, yeah, thank you again for New Year's Eve. It was amazing. Uh,
Sure.
the Brill Building. Uh, you were talking a bit about New York City early on, you know. Uh, how did the Brill building, you know, impact your life?
Well, I'm sure that I don't think that anything like that exists anymore. There was it was a place where a lot of people had little offices. Some of them had big offices. They had publishing companies there. They didn't have recording studios there, but they had producers there. So, like Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller were there. Elvis Presley had a company called Hill and Range Music, and he was there.
Wow.
And there was a guy by the name of uh, oh God, Ralph Peer, and he had a big company there called Peer Southern, and he was a big publisher. He published Buddy Holly's music, and also
Wow.
many other people, like a lot of country and western, as they called it at the time, artists, probably Hank Williams and others, and and Bobby Darin had a company there, and
That Mac the Knife, Mac the Knife.
yeah, Mac the Knife, Splish Splash,
Yeah.
and Bobby Darin, and so it was a place that if you were as an aspiring singer or an aspiring writer, you would go there and try to and knock on the door and try to get an audition. And basically that we so the four of us, Jay Traynor, me, Howie, and Sandy, wound up going over there one day and auditioning for Jerry Lever and Mike Stoller. And many years later, in 1968,
When was that, Kenny? When did you do that, if you remember, or
I would say
around?
around 1960, 1960, 1961. And in
Wow.
1960, and they recorded us. And the second record they recorded with us was She Cried, which became a #2 record in the United States
Wow.
at the time. And that kind of pushed us, you know, we wound up doing TV shows. We went down to Philly and we were on the American Bandstand, Dick Clark, and
Wow.
No, it was really, very exciting. And we owe it to them. They were brilliant geniuses, Jerry Leiber and Mike Stoller. And many years later, we Jay and the Americans opened an office in the Brill building. And one day, uh, I was, in the office, and there's a knock at the door, and the two guys come in, and it was Donald Fagen and Walter Becker, and
Steely Dan.
Steely Dan, and they came in, and they said, "Oh, we took the elevator. We were on the fourth floor." And I said, "We took the elevator up to the top, and we've been walking down the steps and going into offices all the way down, and no one would listen to our songs because we don't have a demo tape." So I says, "Well, come on in."
That's
And
awesome.
and we had a piano, and they sat. Donald sat down at the piano, and Walter stood next to him, and they started singing songs like
Kenny, don't know if you could hear me. Your connection, I think, maybe stops or may sign out. If it does, just sign back in. If you could hear me, don't worry. Everybody, we're going to get right back to the Donald Fagen and Walter Becker story and Kenny Vance and a knock at the door and what they did to play some piano from where we're at. So, what will happen here? These audio issues, technical issues happen. So see, it's signed out, and here's Kenny. Got you right back. I was just letting the audience know this happens all the time with Zoom. Not that Zoom's bad, Zoom's wonderful, but these little technical little dropout things. Don't worry. I'm going to remind you where you were, Kenny. You were talking about Donald sitting at the piano. That was exactly where we heard it from.
Oh, okay. And they started singing songs like, did I do that part yet?
Not yet,
They,
not yet.
they started singing songs like that they had written, songs like Charlie Freak, or the Brain Tap Shuffle, or Shuffling Up Your Downs, or Any World That I'm Welcome to, and The Caves of Altamira. And, the songs at the time were a little ahead of their time, because on the radio in those days we were looking for songs that had the potential of being hits, but it was the songs that were being played in those days were like Leslie Gore's "It's My Party and I'll Cry If I Want to," and the songs that they had were really unusual and really ahead of their time. So it took another 3 or 4 years, for them to, figure it out, and wound up, of course, making a beautiful album with "Do It Again" and "Reeling in the Years."
And Kenny,
So
actually, my dad had a question. My dad's question first was, "How did you first meet them?" So that answers that. And did you write any of the music or help with the compositions for "Reeling in the Years" or any other songs?
no, no, no.
And you also had a hand, though, like not just for my research here, not just in okay, sort of assisting, but didn't you have them play with your band for like a
Ex-
tour or so?
They played with us for about 2 years because they couldn't make any money, with their own band, and they couldn't make any money, with their songs. And so I had a great faith in what would become of them. And so I figured, like, let's put them in the group, in Jay and the Americans. This way they could make a little money, and then and give them, buy them some time before they could, figure out, what they had to do for themselves. But
Wow.
one day, a friend of mine who has a new book out this week called Cloud Nine. It's Richard Perry. It's
Oh.
probably one of the greatest record producers of all time. He was producing Barbara Streisand, I'm going to say it's around 1970.
Okay.
So I had been working with Donald and Walter for about 2 years, and Richard was looking for some material. And they had a song called I Mean to Shine. And I sent it out to Richard, and he liked it very much. And I remember he came into New York and he was recording Barbara Streisand, and I went to the studio where she was recording with Donald one Saturday morning. And Donald sat down at the piano and we taught her the song. And then about an hour or two later, she went in, with the full strings and horns and the whole, the room was filled with musicians in those days. Everything was done live, and she recorded Donald's song. And
Wow.
that really gave them, like some, uh, strength, to also pursue their career, because slowly, like, things were starting to happen. And so and Donald actually played on the recording. He played organ, and I think it might have been Randy Newman played piano on it. I'm not sure. I just
Wow.
sort of remember that.
Wow, Kenny. So, and I believe Walter Becker has passed away, and sending our deepest condolences, of course. That's a couple years back, I believe now, to his family and loved ones, and everyone that loves his music. Not only did you have, hand in, connecting with Steely Dan, and really giving them just an early start with what they were doing with music. You're Kenny Vance. I mean, again, I say this for those who may be new to you. And hey, listen, that's the great thing about these podcasts, Kenny. We have the ability to share ideas with people from around the world and people that share these ideas. So we get some cool messages, and yeah, we feel super lucky. And so you also mentioned that you know you opened up for the Beatles, let alone some other stuff I'm going to get into regarding this. Uh,
Mhm.
Now they first come to America. Was that like in the early '60s? Are we talking like 63, 64? So
No, they came to America in 1964, and we we played with them. I think it was February, I'm going to say 12th or 16th, something like that. I'm not sure. And so we took a train down to Washington D.C., and they were already there. And this was the first time the Beatles ever played in America.
you opened up for the Beatles the first time they ever played in the United States of America. Jay and the Americans opened up for
That's
the Beatles. This handsome gentleman right in front of us, everybody.
well,
Just to say, they were like the biggest thing going. Like Jay and the Americans, like historically, for people who enjoy music history of the 50s and 60s, it's considered like one of the pop bands, one of like the first like early bands like that. If
there
I'm
were three big groups at that time: the Four Seasons, the Beach Boys, and Jay and the Americans.
Frankie Valley, the Four Seasons, and
Yeah,
the Beach Boys, and Jay and the Americans.
yeah.
What an honor.
But so what happened was, then after the show, I could describe the show, but you know, some other time. But so I remember taking the train home with them. On the train, we were heading back to New York, and we were all on the same train, and we were coming back into Penn Station, and it was really like a scene out of the Beatles movie A Hard Day's Night, where they were rushing. There were thousands of people on the train tracks, and so the train pulled up, and the door opened, and the people were squashing come, and they said, "Oh, it's just Jay and the Americans." And I remember they parted like it was the Red Sea parting. And I walked out, and I took a cab back to Brooklyn, where I was living at the time, and I sat on the couch, and I said, "What just happened?" I mean, what was that all about? And then I think that Sunday, which was a few days later, they were on the Ed Sullivan Show. And after they were on the Ed Sullivan Show, it was an explosion. That Beatlemania started at that point.
Did you get to talk to any of the Beatles? Get any get any
Yeah, but
stories?
yeah, we talked to them because they basically they knew about us because we had had a bunch of hits, and so they knew about us, and we were all naive. They were equally as naive as we were. They really had no idea what was going to happen.
Wow.
They were just, a bunch of guys that had a group.
And Kenny, you mentioned we're like sort of at the halfway point, a little past it of the show, and you mentioned you had your guitar out handy somewhere. Just
Hmm.
curious if there's any songs that you may be able to just give us a little halftime show with, or 6 minutes past the halftime, just to give us a little palate cleanser of the consciousness, and we'll get to some more very cool ideas, ladies
All
and
right,
gentlemen.
I have to put the Plano, the Professor Plano glasses on.
Yeah, American Hot Wax. We have another professor in this house right here. This is episode 149, Kenny Vance.
You hear the guitar?
Yes.
My vow to you is sincere. This I promise you. Night and day. On my knees and I pray. I ask the Master to reveal the sincereness of my love, night and day. On my knees and I pray. I sit around wondering about this new affair. Shall I go or proceed or not? Take care. My vow to you is sincere. This I promise you. Night and day. On my knees and I pray.
Oh my goodness. Can we have an applause in this studio, please? What is Kenny? Please, first off, thank you so much for blessing us with that song and the world with that song. What can give the title? And that was absolutely beautiful. If I look like I get into music, your music, I bet you everybody listening to that was
Yeah,
Family Values
my
fans.
vow to you, my vow to you. You
My
know,
vow to you.
yeah.
When was that written?
Oh God, I don't know. Sometime before anyone listening was born.
And Kenny, forgive me if my ignorance here. Was that your original? Was that a song that somebody
It
else
was a
wrote?
song from the 50s. I think it was by the Students.
Students. Great
And
name. Great name.
yeah, the Students. As a matter of fact, I just saw an article in a newspaper. If you can imagine, the Students were a group in the 1958, 59. I just saw an article in a newspaper about the Students recently, like a couple of weeks ago,
What was happening with them? What was going on?
that they just finally got their GEDs.
No, wait, is this real or is this a joke? That's great. I love it. Kenny, listen, I want to go quickly harken to a couple movies that you were a music supervisor for, producer for. From one of the big ones I grew up with growing up in Long Island, New York, on the South Shore, the Warriors. Now that
Mm,
took place in Coney Island and Bronx. Also, you've done work American Hot Wax, and I have a whole list here, so don't mind me if I'm deferring to that. Eddie and the Cruisers.
mm,
Goodness gracious. Animal House.
yeah.
You were Saturday Night Live music director, early '80s around there. Um, just generally speaking, how is it, being somebody who has the ability to create a soundtrack like you did for the Warriors? By the way, just so you know, I grew up with that movie. Students I work with now love that movie.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's timeless, like you were, sir,
Yeah.
like you are.
Some of these movies withstand the test of time. Yeah.
How is it being how is that responsibility, but how is it actually going through the process to get songs all set for a movie? How do you even get the opportunity to do that?
Well, at the time when I did it, I uh, I think fate has so much to do with everything, but the sequence of events were that I made this the original album called that I made as a soloist, which was on Atlantic Records, called Vance 32, and so produced by Joel Dorn, who produced Killing Me Softly with Roberta Flack and Bette Midler, Boogie Woogie Bugle Boy
Ooh,
at the time, and many other people, Yusef Lateef and David Fathead Newman and many, many, Les McCann and many, many, many wonderful artists. And it 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 had the original version of Looking for an Echo on there, and it was done. I did it with the guitar. It was sort of like an acoustic version of it,
oh, that song.
and as a folk song about growing up in Brooklyn and about looking for an echo in the subway. It made you know we weren't nowadays. Everybody, if they want to start a group, they have instruments and guitars and things like that. But we were basically a vocal group. We were following the tradition that had preceded us, like by groups like the Moonglows and the Flamingos, and the Drifters, and we were imitating those people. So it was that we would go in the subway and sing, and if you had the echo there, it made it sound so much bigger, and it
Yes.
made you feel like you actually were good. So
Vance, the great.
we 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 sounded good. And anyway, that song is a story about that. And the album came out, and it wasn't successful. But a friend of mine, Don Phillips, played it for some people who were getting ready to do a movie called American Hot Wax. It was the Alan Freed story. And as a kid, Alan Freed ran the first rock and roll show ever at the Brooklyn Paramount Theater with Chuck Berry and Jerry Lee Lewis and
Wow.
Fats Domino and the Heartbeats and the Hoptones and Lee Andrews and all of those early groups.
Did you
And
see them? Did you see them play?
I did. As a kid, I went to those shows. It was unbelievable.
Where was this in Brooklyn?
It was on DeKalb Avenue and Flatbush. Right now, the theater was purchased by Long Island University,
Ah,
and
LIU.
it's
Okay.
part of their. But they've preserved the theater. The shell of the theater is still there, and and on the floor is a basketball court. So they have their basketball games in there. It's a gym,
Wow.
a huge gym,
Wow. Wow.
but
Wow.
the theater is still intact. And it was it the
Chuck
to tell
Berry? You saw Chuck Berry play?
oh yeah.
What was that
Not
like?
only did I see him play, but when we did American Hot Wax, I got to hang around with him for 2 weeks. And I mean, just to tell you the story about the Brooklyn Paramount
Yes, please.
could be a whole show,
Oh, sure. Of course. Of course. I
really.
understand. Yes.
Um, I forgot what we was.
Kenny, that was perfect. That was exactly what I was looking for, and I was just curious what it was like. Seeing like people like Chuck Berry playing, or having the ability to be young and see all of those pioneers of
Yeah,
music,
no,
and
it was
doo wop.
oh, it was incredible. Jimmy Beaumont and the Skyline is one of the greatest groups of all time. They were there, they were kids, and they were, tremendous. But the question that what we were talking about is you said, how do you do, soundtracks and find songs, for films? And, you never really know. Each film has its own personality. Sometimes you start at the beginning of the film and you need to do things that are live inside of the film. Sometimes they call you and you come on later on and you need to add songs or you need to actually compose the score to the film. For example, like we did John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band, we did Eddie and the Cruises.
Yes,
So
great.
in that situation, the director Marty Davidson, I had met him, and he, asked me. I was talking to him. I said, "Oh yeah, I used to play with Jay and the Americans down on the Jersey Shore, in Wildwood and Atlantic City, and
Yes.
that's where the movie was going to be shot."
Wow.
So he says, "Oh, would you come up to the office? I want to, talk to you." I said, "Sure." So I went up there and he said, "I have the music. The actor is going to lip sync the music."
Wow.
So I said, "Okay." So he plays me the music and he says, "What do you think?" And I said, "It's no good." He says, well, what do you think it should be? And just as fate would have it, a month before, I'm walking down Bleecker Street
Bleecker.
in Greenwich Village, and
Yes.
I'm walking past the bitter end
Oh, right there, right by the Peculiar Pub. I know the bitter end. Spent many years down there.
in
Yes.
Greenwich Village for
Love
people
it.
who don't know.
Right by Thompson. Right by Bleecker and Thompson.
That's exactly right. And I go in, and on the stage is John Cafferty and the Beaver Brown Band. And I'm thinking, wow, these guys are fantastic, really interesting. And that was it. A month later, I'm in Marty Davidson's office, and he says, "What do you think the music should be?" And I thought to myself, John Cafferty and the Beaver Brand Band are the real life Eddie and the Cruisers.
Wow.
It was just meant to be.
It just like
And
serendipitous just happened.
I took Marty down to see them, and he went, "You're right." And and then we started to, and the wonderful thing is that the actor who plays Eddie is Eddie Wilson, I think.
Yeah, I think so.
Eddie, his when he lip synced Cafferty, it just felt right. It just felt like that voice was coming out of that guy.
Yes. Yes.
And so you every project is different, and you work as hard as you can, and you cast the results to the wind. But in this particular case, we the film came out and it was not successful. But about 8 months later, HBO went on the air for the first time,
Wow.
and their format was to pick movies that they would play for a month, and they would play them 5 times a day.
Shout out to my mother-in-law who just got us HBO Max.
And so, one day I get a call from a guy at Sony Records, and he says, You're selling 25,000 albums a day. I said, Of what? Because I didn't even know it was on TV. He says, Of Eddie and the Cruisers.
Wow.
And so after the month, I mean, the thing was like number in the top five
Oh,
on
goodness
the album
gracious.
charts, and the top five on the dark side. Was like a
I
top
grew up
five
with it.
record all over yeah. So, but pretty much that's the story of that.
Wow. Just quick question with the Warriors. What a crazy, incredibly brilliant soundtrack you put
Mm,
together. And
thank
didn't
you.
you have a song on there too?
Yeah. I was at some point making records for Fania Records. I worked for the Fania All Stars, which was a huge Latin. There was a big Latin renaissance going on in the 70s, and I just like, because so the songs and the music needed to have the grit of a gang on a subway in the Bronx, in the street. And so one of the groups that I worked with on the film was Mandrill. And then I decided that I wanted to do a Latin song, and I did a song called In Havana.
Yeah.
And I sing a duet with a famous singer. He was he was the like the lead vocalist for many groups, and his name was Ishmael Miranda, and we do a duet in the Warriors on a song called In Havana.
What a song.
Yeah,
And I just want to say thank you for putting that soundtrack together. People to this day love that movie, love that soundtrack. Everything
yeah,
you've
it's
done,
true.
Kenny, everything you've done, thank you. Kenny, hey, listen, coming up on like the last couple moments here or so, however, I got a question here I'm just curious about, got to get to the Planetones. Gotta ask, well, could you just give a shout out to the Planetones? Who are the Planetones? And sort of how did you all come together?
Well, we came together originally for a movie called American Hot Wax. I put together the Alan Freed show. I mean, what a if you have to have a like an unbelievable job, you know, it's like doing something you love. And as a kid, I went to the Alan Freed show, and now I had to recreate the Alan Freed show, and I put different groups together. We also had Chuck Berry, Jerry Lee Lewis, Frankie Ford, and Screamin' Jay Hawkins. I put a spell
Wow.
on you.
Oh, goodness gracious.
And they needed a group. And I said, well, I used to sing. And I called up a friend of mine, Vinny Poncia, who's a great record producer. And he said, I know a group called the Brooklyn Dreams. He says, why don't you call them up? And I called them, and we met. And it was Joe Esposito, Bruce Sedano, and Eddie Hokinson, and me.
Wow.
We became Professor Laplano and the Planotones. And
Yes.
then and then we took like about a 15-year break. And in 1992, I decided, I had, you know, I think in life, as you get older and you get a chance to actually follow your dream, I said, you know what? I got in this business to be a singer, and I'm going to start a group, the group again. And we started the Planotones again. And it was me, Murray Weinstock, Jerry Friedman, Eddie Hokinson, and Joe Esposito. And then for one reason or another, Joe had to leave. And then Gary Bonner took his place. Gary Bonner wrote Happy Together.
Wow. So
Yeah.
happy together. Oh, you can even try to do a singing thing with Kenny Vance on the line.
No, go ahead. Go for it,
Great
man.
song.
And then, the Planetones now, it's 92. It's what? It's almost 30 years. And it's gone through many different incarnations. I mean, I was only in Jay and the Americans for 12 years,
Wow.
you know,
Wow.
but it was a
Wow.
different time.
Yeah.
And so, now we have Johnny Gale. The great Johnny Gale is a music director, and Jimmy Benz, and my son Lad,
That's wonderful.
which
Big
which
shout
is
out.
which is thrilling to have him with me.
Amazing voice, amazing singer.
Yeah,
Watching videos, always watch videos of
yeah,
you,
yeah.
and
He's
he just
terrific.
he belts it. Yeah.
Yeah,
Oh, goodness
he's great.
gracious. Yeah.
And then and Tony Galino and Chip DeGard. So that's the group.
And and Kenny, just a couple more moments here. I'm just gonna uh ask you about the latest album, For Your
Yeah.
Love. How did that come together? And we're sharing songs in commercial breaks. Gonna be uh For Your Love and Teardrops, I believe, the other we're gonna be
Okay.
sharing.
Yeah.
How, if you can give a little insight on the album itself, how it came together, and
Yeah.
those two songs in particular, what they mean to you.
Well, I've been making CDs for like 20, since we started the Planetones. The first one was Teenage Jazz. And then it was Looking for an Echo, and then the Looking for an Echo soundtrack, and then Lover's Island, and then Oceans of Time, and then Dancing and Romancing, and this time, most of the CDs have been produced by Johnny Gale and myself, and he does the arrangements, and we collaborate and have a great time doing it. But it could take a couple of years to do. And so here we picked out songs, and one song that I always loved was For Your Love by Ed Townsend. And so we did our own take on that. And then as far as Teardrops go, Teardrops was really a big hit. I saw these guys, Lee Andrews and the Hearts, on the Alan Freed show as a kid.
Wow.
I always loved Teardrops. And what we did was we got a chance to actually incorporate the Lee Andrews record inside of our record. So we recorded it at the same tempo, and we
Wow.
recorded it in the same key. So
Wow.
if you listen closely to it, at some point you hear me singing, and then all of a sudden Lee Andrews and the Hearts come in. So it's basically, an homage. We're honoring, the memory of the groups that influenced us, that we grew up with. So if you listen to Teardrops, you'll hear me, and then you'll hear Lee Andrews, and you'll hear me, and it's a a combination of and including their record in our record.
Absolutely beautiful, Kenny. The album is incredible.
Thank you.
Everybody loves it. Everybody loves you. They should love you because you're lovable. You are wonderful. You are timeless. You are, the way I say, a legend who graces this earth with your wisdom, your knowledge, your perspective. And we are honored that you shared your hour with us, Kenny. And if I could just finalize with a word association game, only going to give you 4 words, and just going to ask you what the first thing is that comes to mind when you hear each of these words. And just want to say, if there's any tunes you'd like to strum us out with, feel free as well afterwards, but do not feel put on the spot. It was too good, Kenny. I want more. If I get one potato chip, I can't do one. I was, yeah, I'll get to the word association. Sorry. First word. Sort of touched on a couple of these ideas, but first thing that comes to mind doesn't have to be a word, but it could be a phrase. Barbara Streisand.
Voice.
Second word. Second word. Place. New York City.
My home.
Fourth word. A third word. I apologize. Doo-wop.
Camaraderie.
Final word. Family.
The most important thing. Love and family.
And we love you here. Yes, please.
Will you take part in my life, my love? That is my dream.
Episode 149, the Subjective Perspective Show, the beloved, the timeless, the legend, Kenny Vance. Kenny, anything you'd like to leave
No, I'm
the
good, man.
audience? Hey, listen, we love
Good
you.
luck. Good luck with the show.
We'll talk.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you so much for everything. We love you, Kenny.
Thank you. Take care.
Ciao for now. Ladies and gentlemen, that's Kenny Vance, as we will now get into our commercial break with Teardrops. We'll be back momentarily.